The early 1980s were a transformative period for the video game industry, marked by rapid technological advancements and a burgeoning market for home computers. And whilst our American cousins were focused almost entirely on video game consoles such as Atari VCS, UK gamers were playing on their BBC Micro, Commodore 64 and of course our ZX Spectrum home computers. Soon developers began to unlock the full potential of the little rubber button machine, and at the end of this movement were the company Ashby Computers and Graphics, or as we know them as Ultimate Play the Game. Such a great company. Now, Ashby Computers and Graphics was founded by brothers Tim and Chris Stamper, along with Tim's wife Carol, from their headquarters in Ashby de la Zouch in 1982. And under the trading name of Ultimate Play the Game, they began producing multiple video games for the ZX Spectrum throughout the early 1980s. The company were known for their reluctance to reveal details about their operations and then upcoming projects. Little was known about their development process except that they used to work in separate teams. One team would work on development whilst the other would concentrate on other aspects such as sound or graphics. Their early 16K games such as Jetpack, Pist and Trans Am were massively addictive, with smooth scrolling graphics, large colourful sprites and novel gameplay, with that all-important replay value. Now, Jetpack was Ultimate's first release in May 1983 for the 16K Spectrum. And I have to say I was actually really impressed with this game, the fact that it was 16K and not a 48K game. They deliberately targeted 16K machines, as their smaller size meant development time was much shorter, claiming they could produce two 16K games in 1 month instead of just one 48K game. And the first game, Jetpack, it was a huge commercial success. The Spectrum version alone sold more than 300,000 copies, providing the fledgling company with a turnover in excess of 1 million sterling. Pretty good for the first game, I have to say. And after these initial successes, then Atic Atac came along, and it was the first in a series of action-adventure games featuring larger play areas utilising the 48K memory and huge puzzles to solve, providing a much deeper game experience. The game was released for the ZX Spectrum in 1983 and then the BBC Micro in 1985. It was Ultimate's second game to require 48K of RAM. Most of their previous games, as I said, were designed for the unexpanded 16K models. So, let's have a look at Atic Atac. As I mentioned earlier, the operations of Ultimate were very secretive, and the Stamper brothers rarely gave interviews. Computer and Video Games noted that during development of Atic Atac, staff would work in separate teams to ensure quality control. One team would work on graphics while the other would oversee gameplay or sound. And the Stamper brothers, gosh, they worked 7 days a week with little sleep in order to devote more time into developing those video games, and would frequently reuse the same mechanics of earlier games in newer ZX Spectrum games, because it was a winning formula. The game is presented in a top-down perspective and is set inside a complex labyrinth-like castle with multiple floors and secret passages. And the player, well, he's being trapped inside and needs to collect 3 pieces of the golden key of ACG, which stands for Ashby Computers and Graphics, in order to escape. They can choose between 3 different characters, a wizard, a knight or a serf. And each of these characters has a different ground friction, a different weapon to kill common enemies, and access to a secret passage unique to them, meaning that navigating the castle is different for each one of them. And the castle, well, it's spread over 5 floors, including subterranean dungeons and the haunted attic of the title, and was riddled with secret passages that had to be learned in order to progress. There's also a number of items scattered around the castle, of which the player may carry up to 3 at a time. Some of these are always in the same place at the start of the game, where others are distributed randomly. Items include differently coloured keys which will unlock their respective doors, the 3 pieces of the ACG key, and other items that affect certain enemies or are mere red herrings. Common enemies appear in each room upon entering and will attack the player on sight. Collision with these enemies destroys them but drains a portion of the player's health, so you need to be careful. There are also stationary poisonous fungi which will drain health constantly if the player is in contact with them, and enemies that require special items in order to either distract, repel or kill them. Otherwise they remain in the room, invulnerable to conventional attacks, and rapidly drain the player's health if touched. The player has 3 lives upon starting the game, and should they die, a gravestone will appear at their location and stay in place for the remainder of the current game. The good news is, health can be replenished by collecting food scattered throughout the castle. However, it will constantly drop the more the player moves. Thus, the player may eventually lose a life from starvation if they have not escaped the castle in time. I have to say, I found Atic Atac quite punishing. Anyway, let's have a further look at the game. Now I have to say, for its time, Atic Atac's visuals and graphics were very impressive, leveraging the ZX Spectrum's limited capabilities very effectively. The colourful sprite design and detailed rooms created an immersive atmosphere that drew players into the game world, making the most of the extra memory afforded by the 48K Spectrum. The visual design of Atic Atac maintained a consistent medieval theme, enhancing the game's story and charm. The distinctive look of each character and enemy contributed to the game's overall appeal. And while the Speccy was not known for its advanced sound capabilities, Atic Atac made good use of available resources. The sound effects, although simple, were effective in enhancing the gameplay experience and providing audio cues for the player's actions. And as I've already highlighted, Atic Atac is very well known for its initial challenging gameplay. Players must navigate a complex maze, manage limited resources and contend with numerous enemies. The difficulty curve in this game is certainly steep, but it does reward persistence and strategic thinking. So you just got to stick at the game. It's a great game. And there's several factors that contribute to Atic Atac's high replayability. The randomised elements, such as item placement and enemy behaviour, ensure that each playthrough is unique. And on top of that, the different experience offered by the 3 character classes encourage multiple playthroughs. And ultimately, with practice, the game could be completed within 3 minutes. Although I have to say, that didn't happen for me. Okay, so let's have a look at the BBC Micro version of Atic Atac. So this game was released in 1985 and was also aimed to replicate the success of the ZX Spectrum release. Now for me, this version featured smoother, although chunkier graphics and slightly faster gameplay, all benefiting from the BBC Micro's hardware. The game controls were responsive and the overall experience was faithful to the original. Let's have a look at the game. So there you go, that was the official releases of Atic Atac on both the ZX Spectrum and the BBC Micro. Now, upon its release in 1983, Atic Atac was met with widespread acclaim. Gamers and critics praise its engaging gameplay, intricate design and replayability. It quickly became a staple in many ZX Spectrum collections. In regards to the reception of the game, well, Atic Atac entered the MRIB Top 30 software charts at number 5 in November 1983, taking the number 1 position from Valhalla the following fortnight. And the game received a positive critical reception upon release. Micro Adventurer mainly praised Ultimate's capabilities of developing high-quality games, saying that Atic Atac was bound to fix their name firmly into the minds of adventurers, further recommending the game without reservation. Crash enjoyed the game's colourful graphics, heralding the detail and objectives of the game to be marvellous. However, they did criticise the difficult joystick control and vague instructions, adding that the entire game is a learning experience. Computer and Video Games stated that the game was the best yet from Ultimate, and later in 1984 described it as their favourite arcade adventure amongst computer gamesters. And then Personal Computer Games, they wrote that it was another blockbuster game, while Sinclair User praised both the depth of the plot and the advanced graphics, citing them both as superb. And then in 1991, Atic Atac was ranked as the 79th best ZX Spectrum game of all time by your Sinclair, and was voted the 8th best game of all time by the readers of Retro Gamer magazine, for an article that was scheduled to be in a special Your Sinclair tribute issue. And then in 2007, Eurogamer described it as a prime example of what passion can do when properly digitised. All very positive. The size and scale of the Atic Atac, combined with the smooth graphics and the spooky theme, for me it just felt like nothing had come before on a home computer. Okay, it may seem quaint now, but at the time it was groundbreaking and a sign of greater things to come for UK gamers. Both Ultimate and Atic Atac had certainly left its legacy. We certainly saw that with Saberwolf, which was released for the ZX Spectrum by Ultimate Play the game later in 1984, and was noted for having similar gameplay to Atic Atac, including its similar themes of a continuous maze. The game was also a major inspiration for the critically acclaimed CITV game show Nightmare, which is a British children's adventure game show created by Tim Child and broadcast over 8 series on CITV from 1987 to 1994. The general format of the show consists of a team of 4 children, one who takes on the game and 3 acting as their guide and advisors, attempting to complete a quest within a fantasy medieval environment, traversing a large dungeon and using their wits to overcome puzzles, obstacles and the unusual characters they meet along the way. Well, that certainly does sound familiar, doesn't it? Then, in 1985, Tim and Chris Stamper established Rare. During its early years, Rare was backed by a generous budget from Nintendo, primarily concentrated on the Nintendo Entertainment System games. Rare, come on, Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct, and of course in the Nintendo 64, there was GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark, just to name a few. These guys are absolute legends. And then in 2015, Atic Atac was included in Rare Replay, a collection of 30 Rare design games released on the Xbox One. And the journey doesn't end there. Atic Atac has also inspired a number of homebrew games, and they're all pretty decent, so let's have a look at those. A version of Atic Atac developed by Neil Chiney was released in 1991 for the Commodore Amiga. A Windows PC remake was published by Richard Jordan in 2006, and I have to say this PC remake adds new graphics and sounds to the 1983 action-adventure title, while it's still maintaining the same gameplay of the original. It's a very good game. Let's have a look at that. And then in 2020, there was an Amstrad CPC version. And this version of Atic Atac retained the core gameplay and mechanics of the ZX Spectrum original, but again featured enhanced graphics and sound. The colour palette was certainly more vibrant, and the sound effects were slightly improved due to the CP's superior audio capabilities. However, the gameplay experience remained largely the same, preserving the challenging and engaging nature of the original. Let's have a look. In 2020, Atic Atac was released on the Commodore 64, again another homebrew version of the ZX Spectrum Classic. The game was developed by Thomas Tomcat Cack, with music by Saul Cross and graphics by Steve Day. Let's have a look. Then there was a game called Melkor's Mansion, which is basically another PC version by BitGlint Games, released on Windows on the 17th of January 2002. It's pretty good, I have to say. As I understand, I think they did have agreement by the publishers to do this, but they had to change the name. So there you go, they were the homebrew versions. They were all pretty good, weren't they? So there you go folks, that was my video of Atic Atac. I hope you enjoyed it. For me, Atic Atac is an absolute brilliant game. It just goes to show what passion can do when it's properly digitised. These Stamper brothers, they've done such a great job with this game. So anyway, before I go, remember now, please press that like button. Leave a comment, I'll certainly try to get back to you. I'm very interested in what you thought about this game. And then finally, please subscribe to my channel. It's absolutely great if you could do that. Come on, come and join the gang. So until the next time everybody, see you all very soon. Bye bye.